This is Madeline Lee giving a astrophotography tutorial for my flute teacher, Rebecca Fuller at learnfluteonline.com. It is awesome. It is great. But anyway, I would just like to say I am not good at astrophotography. I know the bare bone basics. When I first got into it, I was also having babies. I've got a 2.5-year-old and an 8-month-old, and I am super busy. And with astrophotography, you need to experiment. You need to get out there and take pictures. And when I'm not too tired to do it, I live on the East Coast, and it's very light polluted, and it's cloudy, and man, it just rained the entire summer this year. So when I had the energy, there weren't stars out to photograph. But anyway, here we go. I will try to explain this as good as I can to at least get you out there and be able to, you can point up and take a picture and hey, you can see stars on it. So the 3 most important things you need to know are you need to know about your exposure settings. And those that you need to know are shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO. I'm also going to say real quick, you need to shoot it in manual mode. You have to be able to control everything, and your focusing also needs to be manual focus. Auto mode will just not work for this. You have to be able to control the settings, and you're about to see why. So let's see here. Let's start with ISO. Okay, so your camera, inside your lens, it has a sensor, and the sensor gathers the light. And you need it to pick up as much light as it possibly can because, well, that's what you want. You want the star's light. You want the starlight. So ISO, it makes your sensor more sensitive to the light. ISO, that is, as my camera just told me, is for bright skies, bright scenes. Now, along with the starlight, you also have to worry about your light pollution, your city lights. If you're somewhere light polluted, like myself, often you get an orange glow towards the horizon, and it really blows up your pictures. And if your pictures are too bright, then it'll look like a daytime picture. You won't even be able to see the stars. But you say you're from Colorado, so you probably don't have to worry about that like I do. So you want your ISO to be high, not as high as possible, and I'll explain that in a second. I like to shoot at 1600 or 3200. It's nice. Oh, and as it's saying, keep images stable, less camera shake. Yes, the higher the ISO, the noisier your picture is. It's very bright, which is great, but it just looks bad. You don't want all that noise in your picture. You want it as clear as possible. Now, your shutter speed. Like I said, your camera has a sensor that gathers the light. The longer your sensor's open, the longer your shutter is open, the more light's going to get to that sensor. So there it is at 1 second. So your shutter's going to close and then open just for a second. It'll just take a second to take the picture. And if it's only gathering light for 1 second, as you can imagine, it's not going to gather very much light. But again, you don't want it open just as long as possible unless you want star trails. But more on that later. If you want just a clear, clean shot like how our eyes see it, it can't be open as long as possible because everything is moving around up there. And that will cause your stars to trail. It'll make your picture look blurry. So you only want that open a long time if you intend on doing a star trail anyway. Now, how to figure out, so since the ISO the brighter it is, the noisier it looks. You want your ISO to be lower. So to compensate for the lower ISO, you need that shutter open longer to gather the light. But how long can you have it open? That depends on your lens. Now mine is cheap, it's standard, it's used like everything else because that is just the way I roll. I have an 18 to 55 millimeter lens. So the smaller that number, the more you're gonna see. And you want landscape in your picture. You want to make it interesting. With 18 millimeters, I can get the treetops. I can get a teeny tiny bit of landscape in there. But if I, changed it to 55, I would be able to see just a pretty tiny portion of the sky. So, okay. So, say you're going to shoot at 18 millimeters. Well, if you want to know how long you can have your shutter open before it starts getting a blurred star trail effect, you have to do a little bit of math, but it's super easy, especially with calculators. You would just take 500 and divide it by 18, or if you shot at 24, you would take 500 divided by 24, and whatever number that gave you is the amount of seconds it can be open. So at 18 millimeters, I can shoot at about 27 seconds before it starts trailing. Now that is the absolute longest I can have it open. It would probably be better to actually shoot it at, say, 25 seconds. With astrophotography, you have to get out there, you have to experiment because every camera is different. Every camera is a different quality. You just gotta test it out. Aperture. It says adjust the aperture to control the area of focus. I don't understand a whole lot about aperture, but I've been told that you want the f-stop, you also call that, to be as low of a number as possible. Now, it normally pops up as 4.5. So let me see. I'm at 3.5. So let me see. Does that have to do with ISO? Nope. Does it have to do with my shutter speed? No. Huh. I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, 4.0, that can work. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've been able to take pictures. If you're asking me this question a year ago, I could go way in depth with this. That's when I was taking my pictures, but 4.0, that will work. I know that if you take it at 4.0 and you have focused well and all your settings are good, if you're focusing good and your images are still coming a little blurry and you're not having your exposure on too long, then just drop that down to 4.5 and then 5.0 and see if that fixes it, and it should. Let's see what else. Okay, more about getting a clear image. You're gonna want a stable tripod, because if you have a flimsy, cheap tripod, it's going to get blown around. The wind will shake it. Believe me, I know. And that tiny bit of vibration will ruin your picture. And also, just clicking the shutter, that will also ruin it. I don't know how tech savvy you are, but I know I was 0% tech savvy when I first started this, knew nothing. But what I learned is you can get these remote, these shutter release cables, there we go. And you just plug it in to your camera and then you click it and that makes it go off instead of actually pushing on your camera. And I think I got mine for 99 cents off of eBay. It came from Hong Kong or China, so it took forever, but hey, it still worked. Now, if you want star trails, because, I showed you a picture of a star trail when you commented, then what you're going to want to do is it has to be in continuous shooting mode. Let's see here. Let me get down to it. Single shooting mode. See, single shooting mode, all that means is it'll just do it once. Continuous means that if I set this up and I click it, it's holding. It's as if I have my button on the camera the entire time without shaking it. Then, so let's see, here I have it set to 15 seconds. That means every single 15 seconds it's going to automatically click again. And then I used a free software I downloaded on my computer called StarStax, and it compiles all your pictures, and then you can see the rotation of the stars themselves. That's how you get the perfect swirling effect. Let's see. I'll also talk about white balance. So custom would really be the way to do it. You just have to experiment with it. You have to experiment with all of them. A lot of times I'll shoot in daylight though. What that does, and that's just because of my location, because the light pollution and plays a big role in how warm or cool your photo is going to look. Like, look at that daylight. It's giving it a very orange look. But for the sake of being able to actually demonstrate, let me get all this set more like I'm doing indoor photography. Make that quick. ISO will probably have to be very low. Let's just say 100. Let's look at that. How's that look? Okay, there we go. So see how you can't tell as well with the phone, but that is much oranger. A warmer color, if you will. Okay. And then if we go in and experiment, let's say tungsten. Let's see how that looks. Click. Okay, see, that's a much cooler picture. Very blue. You want it, yeah, see, daylight, tungsten. You want it to look as natural as possible, obviously. So you just have to get out there and take those pictures. And take a whole bunch of different ones and then decide what you like, what looks good in your atmosphere. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should show you. I mean, there's a lot more to talk about. The moon, for instance. Obviously, you don't want to go out when it's cloudy. But the moon is a huge light pollutant. If you go out there and you take a picture with a full moon, it will typically blow up your entire sky and it'll look daylight. But if you want to make your picture more interesting and you want to light up that foreground a little bit, you know, your tree tops, your fields, and what have you, then you're going to want a sliver of a moon. Or to use a flashlight, I would take a flashlight and it's called light painting. You flash the light on whatever your object is real quick. But a more even, easy shot you would photograph during a sliver of a moon. That's pretty much it. Please let me know, anyone who watches this, not just my flute teacher, but anyone who watches this, let me know if you have questions and I will do my best to answer them. Have a beautiful day and starry skies.